Hello, my name is Carolina Salais, and I will be covering Alton Sterling's case and how police use excessive force. Alton Sterling was an African American man of 37 years old. He was a father of three and was from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was known locally as a CD man since he would sell CDs for a living in front of markets, liquor stores, all around the city. On Tuesday morning, on July 15, 2016, Sterling was selling CDs in front of a convenience store as he usually did. According to the store owner, Sterling had walked into the store, had bought some drinks, chit-chatted with him for a bit, joked around as he usually did, and then stepped out. Little did he know that the police had been called on him due to someone reporting that a man dressed in a red t-shirt selling CDs had pointed a gun at someone. Sterling was wearing red at the time and allegedly had a gun in his pocket. The following altercation that took place with Sterling and both officers Howie Lake and Officer Blaine Salamani were able to be more descriptive in the case due to two recordings made by bystanders that then shared it online, and it just went viral instantly. You see in the video that Sterling was detained by Baton Rouge Police Department officers. You see the officers tased Sterling for resisting several times, then forced him to the hood of a sedan and then to the ground. I understand that it wasn't easy for them, being that Sterling was a big man, but Sterling was pinned down to the ground by both officers. Howie Lake was kneeling on his chest, and Officer Blaine Salamani was the one pinning him down by the thigh, both attempting to control his arms, since there was a claim that he had a gun in his right pocket. Escalating the event, Officer Howie Lake then yells at Officer Salamani, "He's got a gun! Gun!" You hear it clearly in the video. Lake then shouts, "If you fucking move, I swear to God." Officer Salamani yells, "Lake, he's going for the gun." You clearly hear their voice in panic, not knowing what to do, and simply reacting to the fear of a big man that was already pinned down and being concerned at the fact that they might get shot when they clearly had full control of his body. Officer Lamani aimed his gun at Sterling's body after he was already pinned down, having both officers on him. Right after that, you hear 3 gunshots. Right after that, you hear an additional 3 gunshots. Officer Lake was about 3 feet away. His gun was pointed at Sterling, who had a gun wound in his chest. At that point, how do you think a man shot in his chest would then be able to react to what was going on and shoot the officers, which was what they claimed they feared? The officers did retrieve a loaded 38 caliber revolver from Sterling's front pocket. Then the officers radioed for emergency medical services. But by the end of this encounter, Sterling was dead due to not just one, but multiple gunshots that were not necessary, clearly shown on the video that the officers simply just lost it and did not know how to take over this incident, and they escalated into using lethal force when clearly they were using tactics that were working, which were to keep them pinned down. And at the time, maybe being at the steam of the moment, they didn't think about radio instead of an ambulance, call over for help. They didn't. They found it easier to just shoot, not once but multiple times, as stated over and over and over again in this case. Before getting to the investigation part of my presentation, I wanted to share a little more with you guys about the officers that were involved in this case so that you could then think back to see if they had influences, if they felt like they were superior, and I don't know, just to give you guys the feel to make your own opinion about this case prior to the whole investigation part. So, Plain Soleimani has 4 years of experience. His father is a Baton Rouge police captain, and his mother a retired one. Howie Lake had 3 years of experience at the time, which included a previous shooting of an African American male. He was subsequently placed on a department mandated leave and then allowed back to serve the public. To give you guys a better understanding of the Sterling encounter met with these police officers, I have included a short video, one of the ones that were posted at the time that helped this investigation make its conclusion into pressing charges or not pressing charges when you'll later see the outcome of it. But I just want you guys to, consider all the points of views. I want you guys to see your own aspect of the situation. Maybe you guys think differently of the case. But this video is one of the most used evidence for the case. Therefore, it's very powerful, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. The death of Alton Sterling not only had a major impact on the 3 children he left behind, it created a social impact for the Black communities. Candlelight Visual was organized for Alton Sterling on July 6, 2016 by the Black Lives Matter organization, where individuals were able to gather around and share their thoughts on the incident. They were able to express themselves by yelling, "No justice, no peace," as well as "Black Lives Matter," only to find out that on the same day, Philando Castile was also shot during an altercation with a police officer. These 2 videos circulated on social media, sparking mass outrage and protests against the continual police violence in America against Black communities. Then on July 7, 2016, a protest was held in Dallas, Texas, relating to the shooting of Sterling and Castile. At the end of the peaceful protest, Xavier Johnson opened fire in an ambush, killing 5 police officers and wounding 11 others, including 2 civilians. Johnson was then killed by a robot-delivered bomb. I strongly believe that the protests that went on due to the death of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile are due to seeing how many lives are lost to police killings. So many phone calls telling families that their loved ones, particularly young Black men, won't be coming home. In most cases, it isn't because individual police officers are consciously racist or think Black lives don't matter. I strongly believe it's because officers perform the way they are due to the training they receive. An investigation then took place. Parts of the shootings were captured on video. The Louisiana U.S. Representative Cedric Richmond said that the footage of Sterling's shooting is deeply troubling and called for a U.S. Department of Justice investigation into the man's death. Governor John Bel Edwards announced on July 6, 2016, that the Department of Justice would launch an investigation. The United States Department of Justice then opened a civil rights investigation on July 7, 2016. The civil rights are an expansive and significant set of rights that are designed to protect individuals from unfair treatment. They are the rights of individuals to receive equal treatment in a number of settings. The Black community itself felt that the civil rights investigation would favor in their honor, being that there was the best evidence, which was two videos showing Alton Sterling not attempting to shoot an officer, not attempting to put his arm in his pocket. So the community itself felt very confident that justice would be made. The outcome of the investigation resulted in the Justice Department not pressing charges. The U.S. Attorney stated that in a year-long federal investigation focused on whether either officer violated federal criminal civil rights laws or any other federal criminal law. They were trying to conclude if Sterling was reaching for his weapon. So they reviewed the video to see if in fact Sterling was reaching for his gun, and the evidence couldn't establish that Sterling was not reaching for a gun. Although the video showed that Sterling's right hand was not in or near his right pocket, Sterling was continuing to move even after being shot 3 times, and that's what the officers felt was still a threat, not realizing that it's a form of act, like a reflect upon a body that has just been shot at. In reality, it's not Alton Sterling trying to move, but it's just a reaction to the body shutting down after it's been shot. They then asked if the actions taken by the officers were reasonable. Two independent use of force experts concluded that the officers' actions were reasonable under the circumstances and that they met constitutional standards. They emphasized that the officers were responding to a call that someone matching Sterling's description had brandished a weapon and threatened another person. They also stated how the officers attempted to control Sterling through multiple less than lethal techniques before using lethal force. Multiple shots were fired. First 3 and then additional 3. In the result of the investigation, they stated, with respect to the second series of shots, both experts emphasized that officers are trained to eliminate a threat and that Sterling appeared to pose a threat because he was still moving and his right hand was not visible to Officer Soleimani. Now they are left with the hope that although the federal government failed them, that the state officials will make the appropriate decision and file against these two officers. An ethical issue that you see in this case is how the Baton Rouge Police Department allowed for Howie Lake to patrol once again. Howie Lake had already been placed on a department mandated leave after he killed an African male, and then on administrative leave when he was involved in the killing of Alton Sterling. This becomes an ethical issue because now you start to question if this agency is doing the right thing by keeping this officer. What if the environment he's in is just not what he needs to be involved in? By allowing these officers to continue patrolling these neighborhoods, it only stirs up a fear upon individuals that should feel comfortable and secure when they see a officer patrol, or when they see an officer, they'll for these kids in these neighborhoods to feel safe enough, confident enough to approach an officer and not feel like they're going to be discriminated or shot at. I feel like the ethical dilemma here is the lack of training that these officers are receiving. Training their officers are emphasizing de-escalation and flexible techniques in a way that minimizing the need to rely on force will avoid lethal force to be used and performed so often that we see now. Teaching more comprehensive tactical training would also help prevent unnecessary use of force. Officers need to be trained more to think beyond the gun belt and to use the pepper spray, the baton, the taser, and to leave the gun to be the last resort. Reading more in depth to how officers are trained, I found out how they are repeatedly taught that hesitation can be fatal. So officers are trained to shoot before a threat is fully realized, to not wait until the last minute because the last minute may be too late. What about the consequences of a mistake? What if, after all, that dark object in the suspect's hands could be a wallet and not a gun? The occasional training scenario may even make that point, but officers are taught that the risks of mistakes are far less than the rules of hesitation. A common phrase that I've heard about is, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. I believe that the training also needs to compensate for the unconscious racial biases that lead officers to perceive a greater threat from black men than from others. Because officers use more force when they perceive a greater threat. Unconscious bias can lead officers to react more aggressively when confronting black men than they would when confronting others in otherwise identical situations. As we've seen too many times, the results are beyond tragic, as was for Alton Sterling's. Although it may be impossible to completely eliminate every aspect of unconscious bias, research strongly suggests that more sophisticated training could lead to more accurate threat identifications, correcting for racial biases that officers may not even be aware of. The case of Alton Sterling didn't receive its justice as many people believed. It's impossible to ignore that relationship between black and brown communities and law enforcement remains as strained as it was decades ago. No one begins their life as a hashtag, yet the trend of being reduced to one continues. This is real and I'm concerned. Concerned for the safety of my family, my friends, and any human being who could fall victim to this pattern. Was a short message that a famous um, artist shared. This case stirred up a lot of social media, a lot of comments came along, and they all felt that Alton Sterling didn't receive the justice he deserved, and I support that as well.